When it comes to creating a sense of well-being for the long term, rituals are important. What we do every day shapes so much of our life. That said, switching things up from time to time is an essential ingredient to staying on track with feeling your best. Hi, welcome to the Connect with Sheila podcast. I'm an entrepreneur, mom, self-care strategist, and creator of the Seasons self-care app. I'm committed to helping you reconnect to your purpose, elevate your well-being, and build your version of a happy, successful life. Today's Q&A episode came from a listener question. CJ says, I love my yoga practice. It's been a key part of my daily rituals for years. For a long time, I never questioned whether I'd get to a class, but the last year, I've noticed it's becoming increasingly challenging to prioritize it. I find myself feeling a little stuck. Any suggestions on reviving an old self-care routine? Well, CJ, you are in good company. So many of us go through this where we've been doing something for a very long time, and then it just doesn't have the same feeling when we go about doing it. And that's totally normal. As with anything in life, we typically, as much as we love routine, we also love to switch things up from time to time. So I think it really depends on a few things. It depends on the season of life you're in, how busy your life is. It also depends on perhaps how long you've been doing many other different things in your life. Sometimes we can be moving through life and it feels like it's the same thing over and over all of a sudden. Like it can start off feeling amazing and like there's all this newness, but then we start to do things on autopilot. And when we do things on autopilot for long enough, we can start to feel a little bored because truly, just as the seasons change, and as children go from young to then growing through their teen years to becoming adults, and like our bodies are always changing, so do our ideas, so does fashion. Like we love to see new things, and it's just built into us. And sometimes we like more ritual than newness, and some people like more ritual than newness. It really depends on so many different factors, but really it just sounds like you are looking for something a little different. You're looking for some sort of change is what it sounds like to me. And so I'm going to answer this by sharing a little story. I really believe that in order for you and I to have a beautiful practice of wellness that carries us through our life, we do need to cultivate some flexibility in what that looks like. And again, if we're looking at things seasonally, we can even see how there's certain times of the year that we prefer to eat a certain way. For instance, in the summertime, we might want to have really light foods, things that you can grill on a barbecue, or things that can be eaten cold, like various types of salads. And then in the autumn season, and as we're heading into wintertime, we can maybe want more of the roasted things and soups and things that kind of feel more filling even, that, like a really nice big hunk of bread or something that you can dip into a soup. I know my boys love that so much. And so do I. Nothing like a fresh piece of fresh baked bread right out of the oven, and then you're dipping it in something delicious like chili or some kind of really lovely vegetable soup. And so our taste buds do change. And even if you're looking cyclically in your feminine design, certain times of the month, you might crave certain foods as well. So see, it's kind of with a lot of different things. So when it comes to the story I want to share, it's something that you cultivate a self-awareness about really what works for you over time. And sometimes certain things feel more grounded for you to be doing than others. And this can change decade after decade as well. For instance, there was a time that I used to absolutely love doing aerobics. And I would go to the gym, and that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do a class and it felt amazing. And then that wore off. And then I decided I was going to get into weightlifting. And so I loved to do circuit training at the gym. And that was amazing. And so then I would add a little bit of cardio in as well as like a warm up or a cool down. And then I kind of carried the idea of weights alongside of me, and I started doing a little bit of Pilates. I found it was just something that I was craving to do. And then I started to do some running. And that lasted until I was 40. And I made a concerted decision to just not run anymore because I wanted to help my joints feel really good for the long term. It was kind of a decision that I personally made. I know everyone's different with how their body makeup is and how they feel and the way they train. But for me, I felt like it was something I wanted to do. So I leaned more into like HIIT, high intensity interval training type of weight workouts instead. And then I switched to brisk walks. And now I still do those things. I've added more yoga and flexibility into my practice. So you see, things have changed over time. And partly it was what my body was craving. And partly I wanted a change of scenery in the type of work that I was doing for my body. And so it's true for all of us. It's something that we all need to really consider for ourselves. For some, it may be they want to go rock climbing. They want to be more experience and adventure based. They might want to go kayaking. They might want to, go sailing. Like sailing is actually quite a workout. I have not personally really sailed, like actually done the things. I've been on a few sailboats and watched other people work really hard. But that can be very exhilarating too. So everything can be just so beautiful for our wellness and can be a ritual for us. Getting into nature, just breathing in that fresh air, being by the water, being on the lake or being on the sand is just so beautiful. And I wanted to also share with you something that even just how things can shift in a year from season to season. So the last year, I started doing like 2 walks a day once 2020 hit because everything had shut down and I was just really craving getting outside more and more, even when it was really cold outside. And that was like a lifeline for me personally. And so I added that to my weight HIIT routine. And so I was doing that for a while. And then I found I just cut down to once a day. And then as the weather started to get nice, and I think this lasted a couple of years that I was doing this. And then this past 2022, I started to want to do more just being in my backyard and working out and exercising barefoot on the grass. And I've talked about this a few times on these episodes where I love being under the trees barefoot on the grass. It feels so good. It really is very grounding. And I think it's been beneficial to me in many ways, especially in this high-tech kind of environment we find ourselves in. Being on the earth and being connected to it is so empowering for your body. And so I started to do that. And then instead of taking brisk walks, I started to do 2 things. In the springtime, I started to do a nice leisurely walk after dinner, often with my husband, and we had a nice time chatting. It was just like a nice way of catching up and a beautiful way to digest after having dinner as well. And what I would do every morning is, once again, after having one when I was a child and using it occasionally just for fun, Peter and I bought a rebounder. And so it's a little trampoline that we had in the house. And I started to bounce every morning for like first 10 minutes and then 15 minutes every single morning before I would either do some Pilates or a weight workout. And so I did that as well as being out on the grass. And so that felt so good. I noticed so many benefits from doing that personally, and maybe I can go into that in another episode. And then as the summer wore on, I continued doing that. And into the fall, I actually started to just do more indoors and get outside midday for a walk instead of going out after dinner when the sun was setting and it was a little cooler. And so I found that making myself like allowing myself really to think about and feel into what it needed really, really helped me. And it helped me come through a bit of a tumultuous time with some perimenopausal things I was experiencing as well, because I was really getting grounded in my body and I was really paying attention to what felt good. The other thing I started to do was, instead of getting up as early, I was allowing myself to sleep a little longer as I moved into the autumn and winter phases, and I'd go to bed earlier. And I found that I just needed that extra rest. And so, to answer your question, when you're talking, CJ, about yoga and about you did it for years and it was starting to feel like a challenge to prioritize it, I invite you to look into how you can switch things up for yourself. And I'm not saying stop doing yoga altogether. I mean, yoga is a wonderful practice, and it's just that, like, we keep practicing it. Have you considered trying different kinds of yoga? Have you considered trying going to a yoga class with different people or a different instructor? Or perhaps if you go to yoga classes, have you tried doing something at home or doing it outside? Or if you're like one of my friends who loves doing acro yoga, where she uses the silks and is hanging on the silks for a lot of the different poses. There's just so many things you can do to revive your practice. So I invite you to look at that. And like I said, even just being with different people changes it up too. But always be willing to allow yourself to make a change and not feel like, oh, I've always done it, so I always have to keep doing it. We get to decide when we want to make a change. Because anything that you're doing for your wellness, like, it involves your mental health as well, and your happiness and your sense of joy and connection. So if you're not feeling those things, then you need to find something that is going to help you connect to that. So I invite you to look at that, and also just think about other areas of your life where perhaps you are finding it more challenging, whether it's different foods that you're eating or different activities you're doing or the way that you're working or what your schedule looks like. Always give yourself permission to be flexible with the things in your life, and especially when it comes to your wellness, because feeling good starts with you making an intention and taking steps towards it and really being honest with yourself along the way. There's no one way of doing any of it. You get to choose. So thanks for that question. And for those of you listening, I hope that that's helpful for you. You can certainly apply that to other areas of your life as well. And if you haven't already, look up the Seasons Collective in the show notes. You'll see a link to it. It's a place I designed for you to step into the next phase of your life or business evolution in a community that places a high value on personal growth, connection, and making a positive impact in the world without burning out. And that includes in your wellness rituals. So this is for the woman who owns her worth and who wants to serve from a place of overflowing energy and well-being, and her impact is amplified by the way she nourishes herself, body, mind, and soul. To learn about all that is involved and how you can become a part of this community, please go to the link in the show notes for the details. I would love to join you in there. Thank you so much for listening. If you got something valuable from this episode, tag me on social media, because I love to shout out the messages you tag me in. It means the world to me that you listen to these episodes. And when you rate, review, or share, it helps spread the message of going for your version of a life of more to those who need the encouragement. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Big blessings.